New this fall.
Want to come in for a visit?
No matter how old you are, nothing gets past Mom.
Hi, Joshy.
How do you always know?
We used to be one body.
One way or another, I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you. One way or another, I'm gonna win ya. I'm gonna get you. One way or another, I'll get you.
9JKL premieres Monday, October 2nd.
Thanks for being here, Mark.
I'm so happy to be here.
Good to see you. You have a new show.
We do.
Yeah.
Right here, 9JKL.
Amazing. And you created this with your wife.
Yes.
How did that start?
So for the last 8 years, I've been on a show called Royal Pains. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. Okay, all right. I was fishing.
You knew.
I was
Yeah,
fishing for that a little bit. So I live in LA with my wife and 3 kids, but while I was shooting here in New York, to save money, I crashed in the apartment that my parents own next to the apartment that I grew up in here on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And so every morning, my father would come in his tighty whities and go, Mark, what do you want for breakfast? You want scrambled eggs? You want French toast?
This is for like 8 years while you...
Yes,
Oh
for
my God.
like 5 to 6 months of the year when I was living here, driving out to Long Island every day. That's where I lived, in this apartment next to my parents. The apartments are actually 9J, 9K, and then for a period of time, my brother, his wife, and their baby lived sublet 9L. So for 2 years, I was living between my parents and my brother, his wife, and their baby while they were renovating their big Park Avenue duplex. Anyway, I told that to a producer. He's like, that's a show. That's a show. And I said...
Did the producer talk like that too? Is that
He didn't actually, but I just like doing that.
Do you have like a ponytail? Do you have a ponytail? And he was like,
He looked like Louis B.
Mark.
Mayer. He said, he just walks around going, that's a show. You're a show.
You're fired. Get in
here. He
here.
does. He's like, what's your show? He just will tell people, pitch me the show about your life. And he's very successful, so that's not a bad way to go. Anyway, he had worked with my wife on many projects. My wife has written for the TV show Friends for many years. She wrote for Fresh Off the Boat. She created a show on CBS called Friends with Better Lives. And so we turned to her and said, hey, how would you feel about running and writing the show that we're talking about based on my family? And she kindly agreed. So now my wife and I have created this show. We are running it sort of together, but she's really running the writer's room, and I'm more the guy on set and editing and post-production and lots of other issues. But we're doing it together. We have not killed each other, which is a miracle. And we've made 8 episodes of television already, and we think they're pretty good.
So what is that like? What's it like working with her on set? Had you worked with her in a professional capacity before?
We wrote a screenplay together once. But we've never like pitched a show and gotten a show on the air together. And the truth is I've had 15 years of training, taking all of her orders and doing her bidding. So why not cash in on it in a professional capacity? Right. So now I just take her orders and do her bidding, on set. So I was well trained for this job.
No disagreements. You're just like, yes, absolutely, that's what we're going to do.
You got it, honey. No, there are a couple. There was one moment on set. We shot a show on Tuesday night where she was trying to get me to say a line a little differently, and I said it however I said it. And then she goes to the director, could you just get him to do... I'm like, all right, we do a take. She goes, yeah, could you just get him to... I'm like, honey, I see you, and that's it. I'm done. We got it. So yeah, it got a little tense, but we're okay.
Well, that's one of those
we
weird...
hug and kiss after every tape night and make up.
That's one of those weird situations because when things get tense in a professional situation between a husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend that everybody knows together, people immediately assume or insinuate that there's more going on after that somewhere.
Yes.
And
there have been some awkward moments in the writer's room too, but
people really back down, and you have to be like, no, it's okay. We're disagreeing like professional people here.
Well, the truth is, I think it's great sometimes. I mean, first, I'm a pleaser by nature. I don't like awkward moments, but if there are, it's because we feel so strongly and passionately about whatever we're arguing about that we get into a clash, and that's a good thing because it means we care.
If you have a 15-year marriage, you can clash, and you're probably pretty strong about your clashes and know how to handle that.
Unfortunately, we're comfortable with the awkwardness, and not everybody else is in the writer's room. So they're like, are they getting divorced? No, we're just having a moment. It's fine.
So you pitch this show, and they come back to you and they say, "Okay, well, let's make this a a 3-camera sitcom." Was that what you were expecting, or did you think you were going to be doing single camera? What was the expectation?
Well, because it's 3 apartments next to each other, it just lends itself so naturally to a sitcom. I mean, the TV I watch is maybe more often a little single camera. I like a Louie. I like Better Things, Love on Netflix.
You're coming from a single camera, right?
Yeah,
Royal Pains.
I was on Royal Pains, but sometimes you just have to follow the idea through its natural manifestation or iteration, and this is what this was meant to be. It is about 3 apartments next to each other, sort of in the spirit and style of a show like Everybody Loves Raymond. And production-wise, a sitcom is actually cheaper and easier to make.
Better on your schedule, right?
A great schedule for actors. For writers, not as much. The actors go home at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon after we do a run-through for the producers. The producers and writers stay and write till 2 in the morning. So my wife will sometimes send me home to put the kids to bed, and she'll stay there till 3 in the morning. Yeah, it's intense.
So you become kind of not a stay-at-home dad,
Yes,
but you
I'm
become
basically
the dad.
a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, it's like daddy daycare, except that I'm supposedly the star of a TV show.
Were you worried about getting into a 3-camera sitcom? You hadn't done one in a little while, right?
It's been a while. The last one I did was Good Morning Miami, and before that, years ago, there was one called Conrad Bloom, where Linda Lavin actually played my mother. So we feel like this was the one that was meant to go, and this was the one where it was meant to work.
How did you go about casting?
We got all of our first choices. I mean, these 2 are TV legends, Linda Lavin and Elliot Gould. I mean, they're amazing, and the chemistry they have between each other is like the chemistry you could only have after each of them, respectively, spending so many years in the business, working with so many amazing people, and they're just so gifted and brilliant. David Walton has been the star of his own show about a boy. He's on New Girl. We were so lucky to get him. He is not only incredibly handsome, which is, I mean, I was ridiculous for hiring someone that beautiful to stand next to every week, but what could I do? We were so lucky to get him. And
you ever turn to your wife or the directors as the producer? Can you make him a little more ugly in this scene?
Yes, ugly him up, please, God. But he's not only is he so handsome, he's so brilliantly funny. I mean, I had no idea how talented he was, but he's fantastic. And Lisa Lapira plays his wife. She is also so brilliant, talented, and beautiful.
Now, being the executive producer of the show and working on it with your wife is one of your main goals when you go about casting and staffing up, being like, am I going to want to spend every day with the people that I'm hiring? Like, is that the first thing that goes through your head?
I mean, the first thing that goes through your head is we want the best people for every job.
Yeah.
And luckily, because, I mean, we do have sort of a no jerk-off policy, we have the most amazing writer's room. Everyone is truly so gifted. We are so lucky to have each of them. The cast is flawless up and down the line. And then our crew is top-notch. It's basically the crew from the show How I Met Your Mother. It's like all the same people. Our director, Pam Fryman, is a genius. And our producers, Wendy Trilling and Dana Honor and Aaron Kaplan, are also all so fantastic at what they do. So we have everyone at the top of their game. If this show doesn't work somehow, it's not because it wasn't the best iteration of this idea.
Yeah, sometimes stuff works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's
out of our control now, but
show.
I know that we've put our best foot forward with all these people.
How much are you finding that things that actually took place with your parents when you were living there are sort of bleeding into the show?
Well, so, the show is loosely autobiographical about my family, and so there's like 3 or 4 things in the pilot that actually happened to me. One event is my father asks me to be in a viral video promoting his law firm's estate planning business, which when I was the star of a TV show, Royal Pains, was not exactly the sexiest thing to do, but I agreed to go to the law library at Herrick Feinstein, his firm here at 2 Park Avenue, and shoot a video where I pretended to be the oldest son of a father who died, and he was my lawyer, and we acted out this horrendous scene. And I assure you that video did not go viral. No offense to anybody who made it. Wasn't the best way to advertise a law firm.
How did he pitch it? Did he call it a viral video, like right off the bat? Like, I want you to do this viral video?
In the show, he calls it a viral video. In real life, my father didn't even know the term viral enough to say that.
And do this thing.
And he wouldn't have been so silly maybe to assume that it would ever go viral. But I made that video. I brought a girl once to my parents' country house for a weekend, and all she wanted to do was relax. We go outside in the backyard. We're sitting on chaise lounges just reading, and my father walks out there in just his bathing suit with a platter of melon, and he says, excuse me, how would you like, have you ever had a gorgeous piece of honeydew melon? And she says, I've had melon. I don't know if it was gorgeous. He says, this is a gorgeous piece of honeydew melon. And he begins to reach over my body to feed it to her. This poor girl who I'm trying to seduce realizes that my father, with his meat paws, is feeding her. She kindly moves her head forward to have him feed her. As I watch in slow motion, as his foot slips on the wet grass, his belly comes hurtling towards me at 1,000 miles an hour. I'm screaming, no! As he's jamming honeydew melon down her throat. She's going, oh, it's gorgeous, it's gorgeous. And we put that moment in the show. There's a moment where I'm on a date. I bring the girl out to my terrace to try to make out with her, and my father shoves melon down her throat.
He's trying to cram that honeydew melon down that throat.
He's trying to feed the world one gorgeous piece of melon at a time.
And have your parents seen the show?
They have seen the show. They were there at the taping, which provided a couple of awkward moments because there's a moment where my mother yells at my brother on the terrace. She says, you don't like to visit with me. And then I say, neither do I. And then they yelled cut, and I had to run to my mother, who's in the front row, and say, Mom, of course I love to visit with you. I mean, it's the best to visit with you. It's for a TV show. We're just trying to be funny.
Loosely inspired, Mom. Loosely
inspired. Loosely autobiographical. Yeah. And she was like, okay, Mark.
She has to.
I'll let you sit at my table for another 2 hours next time you come home to New York.
She has to get it, though. I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time. I'd imagine she
Oh, my
gets
God.
it.
They're so proud. I just came from Rachel Ray, where my father was on the show with me cooking his mother's spaghetti. That's what we're talking about. It's a family affair. Right. From my parents to my wife helping make the show.
Does that feel great? I mean, at this point in your career, after having worked for so many people for so long, to be able to do something that involves all of your family?
It feels incredible. I mean, it feels like there's love. I mean, true blood and family love in every aspect of the production. And I just feel like we couldn't be making it more with the right spirit and the right heart and the right sense of family, and both, the feeling that you can't live with them and you can't live without them is so felt on every front. And I feel like that informs the show in a way that makes it grounded and truthful, which is really what makes all TV and movies great, is when they feel believable and true and real. And it's really been made with love and a lot of family agita as well.
That's great. Let's talk about something else that just came out this past summer that you were in.
Yes.
Wet Hot American Summer.
Yes, a slightly more indie, edgy vibe to that show.
Yeah.
But I was very proud to be in that show.
Were you a fan beforehand?
Huge fan, and I have known David Wayne and Michael Showalter, who created the movie and who create the TV show, for many, many years. Michael Showalter and I did a play together. He just directed The Big Sick, that amazing movie that came out, which I loved so much. And David Wayne has made many great movies like Wanderlust and so many others. And so they had this character, Mark, who they had already written, and they named it Mark because they had me in mind, which isn't necessarily a compliment because my character's kind of a douchebag. But, yeah, right? But they said, hey, why not get the guy we were thinking of when we created it? Which I don't think they think I'm a douchebag, but...
They created the character like a long time ago?
Well, no, they wrote it for the second season.
Okay, yeah.
But I know so many of them personally over the years, from being in New York when they were the state, and seeing them out in LA now that they have families and live out there.
Were you in any of the Stella videos?
No, I was
never.
I never worked with them other than doing a play with Michael Showalter many years ago. But when it came time for casting this part, which I don't know if anybody's seen it, but they digitally inserted me and my female counterpart, played by Sarah Burns, into
I love Sarah
who's
Burns.
so funny and talented. And they digitally inserted us into the original movie. So it comes off of me and her carving our initials into a tree onto the truck as they're coming back from that famous scene when they're in town, not getting candy like we did at summer camp, but doing crack on the streets.
Well, they didn't just digitally insert you. I think that if I remember correctly, the first shot of you guys is like they're all there, and it is the original scene from the movie, and then they just cut to you.
Yes.
In like
we're just standing
almost like
there.
a different location. Yeah.
And they're all 20 years younger, and we're standing here now, like not looking as young, talking to them as if we're all in the same age group.
Wearing like absurd wigs, I think, too.
Yes,
Were you?
very absurd wigs. My hair goes from like an incredibly high Jufro to like a long-haired perm. Yeah.
What was it?
It showed my versatility hair-wise.
So what's it like working on that show? Because when I watch that show, it looks to me like everybody is having the best time and also has the freedom to like, I mean, it's much as it's written and it's jokes, everybody has the freedom to kind of do whatever they want almost.
Oh my God. It's the reason they get such incredible actors to come. Like Chris Pine was in it. What's her name? Oh God, I forgot. Elizabeth Banks was in it. She's in it, fantastic. Paul Rudd comes back and does it every time because they create this set where anything can happen, and they have such crazy off-the-wall comedic minds that anything does happen.
What was it like? Did you experience the sort of? I spoke to David Wayne a little about it, but the scheduling of getting everybody together, like
insane.
I think there's
because
like one shot where everybody's together, or maybe there isn't even one shot.
There's never a moment where all of these actors who are very well known are in the scene at the same time. Because Paul Rudd was shooting a movie in Germany, so we're all reacting to nobody. There's nobody there. We're just reacting to their lines as if they are, or we have a stand-in on set pretending to be that person. And then, I mean, there were scenes where, like, 15 of the people were actually never there at the same time, and they shot it like they had to go back to that same set like 5 different times when that person was finally available and put other stand-ins in place of the other people. It was an AD, an assistant director's nightmare.
Who did an amazing job.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as the show can kind of make fun of what it's doing consistently and be like, yeah, we know they're not all here, so let's make jokes about it. It actually didn't make jokes about that often, you know? Like,
no. But there were kind of meta jokes throughout.
When Paul Rudd first shows up and he's like the one person on set doing something crazy and everyone's like looking in different directions at him, like that was a clear joke about it. But I mean, considering that there were so many shots of or scenes with everybody in it, they weren't always pointing to it, you know? They were doing it seamlessly at times.
They did an unbelievable job. I mean, it was such a challenge production-wise for them to get everybody there, and I'm sure Netflix is incredibly grateful that they got so many fabulous people to be in their show. In fact,
Jai Courtney, which was
Jai Courtney,
so silly that he was in it.
From Suicide Squad. He was so funny. I took a picture with him. He gave the camera the finger. That's Jai. But he's a great guy, and we had a great time shooting that. And Michael Showalter has been lobbying hard for me to give him a part in 9JKL. He makes it very clear to me that he's offer only, but he wants to play an a-hole in the building, like in apartment 13J or something.
That'd be great.
I'm thinking about it. Are you kidding? I would love to have him on the show, and I can't tell if he's like with the show, Wet Hot American Summer, I cannot tell if he's serious or not. He keeps emailing me, telling me, I'll do it, man. I'm like, you're about to shoot a movie with Julia Roberts called Train Man somewhere where you won't have any time for. He's like, offer only, bro. Offer only. Like, I don't know what to do.
He just wants the offer, so you go, oh, I'm busy.
Yes,
Sorry,
I think he just wants to pass on me. Yeah, it's like a guy trying to get a girl so he can reject her.
That is such a great joke, to push someone into doing that and then being able to go.
It's the kind of joke you would see on Wet Hot American Summer.
Sorry, just too busy. Scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, but thanks for the offer, buddy. Thanks for the offer.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question? Right here.
Hey, I actually love watching Royal Pains, one of my favorite shows.
Oh, thank you so much.
I was wondering, since you got to work on this new show, like, how was the writing process? Because, like, with Royal Pains, there's, like, an arc, and then there's also the case of the week, and then with this show, it's, like, more on personal experience in a way, so just wondering, like, how that process was different for you.
Great question. Thank you for asking. I was so lucky to get to have my wife to write this show with me because I have many great stories about my family, a bunch of which made it into the pilot, but there are many others that might not have been as appropriate to a pilot where you're trying to establish a character who, you know, very clearly is trying to find the love of his life since he's recovering from a divorce in LA and trying to find the next phase of his career because he was on a show that is sort of meant to be like Royal Pains, but is not nearly as good as Royal Pains was. It's called Blind Cop, and people come up to me on the street and go, I got him, Chief, I got him. Man, that show sucked. So we make fun of the show that he was on and make it more like he's got a ways to climb out of the career hole that he's in.
Pilots are hard.
But this is what you have to make very clear in writing a pilot is, you know, just enough on the subject of his career and just enough on the subject of his love life, but you also have to establish who the mother is, who the father is, the brother and his wife, and get out the information that they live next door, that they're renovating an apartment, that he's living next door to his parents, that they're very invasive when he's on a date.
Plus a storyline and conflict that is also specific to that episode. So you have all of that introductory stuff, and then you need like a conflict that is actually only for that episode alone.
And the conflicts are many, but we had to pare them down. So I will attribute the skill set required to my wife, who I kept vomiting out the stuff of my life that I'd like to include, and she kept saying, okay, shh, not that, no, stop telling me about that story. We're going to include this, this, and this, and we're going to have to structure it this way so the story actually builds upon itself, and we create tension, and that's how we had tension. You know, we had so many real things, but they were specific real things that helped build out the life of this show, like the clip you saw, the montage of me trying to get past my mother's door, which is something that would really happen every time I'd come home from set and just try to get to bed, and there she'd be like a gunslinger in a nightgown whipping open the door. Hi, Mark, would you like to come in? I have black and white cookies from Pick a Bagel. And so I would go in and have a black and white cookie. But, you know, that was something that helped establish the character, who is somewhat of a pleaser, good boy, who fulfills his obligations to his family, but quietly resents, like doing the viral video, like bringing a date out onto the terrace, and finally, the last straw is when my father shoves the melon down my throat and I scream at him. But these were the perfect stories, the perfect analogs to include in the pilot, and I can assure you there were many to which my wife said, shh, stop, no.
Next question.
Hi, I was wondering from a creative standpoint, does your approach to something like this, a personal project, change when it's your own, or do you approach everything in the same way?
That's a great question. It's not, I'm very new to being a creator of a TV show. I have been on many shows, but to dip your hands and toes into the DNA of a show, to be at the cerebral cortex where it all begins, is very new for me. So it didn't change anything because I've never really done it before. But the feeling of performing a character who is very similar to yourself, who is loosely based on yourself, and being in the writer's room, that hub, that center of creation, and knowing where it's going, and knowing, you know, looking at it from a global perspective. The first time I got to do that was on Royal Pains, where I got to direct 5 episodes. And that was one of the scariest moments of my career, because you're not just focused on your character, which is all I had been doing for 15 years as an actor. You're visually telling the story of all the characters, and that requires, you know, confidence and hubris and pride, and you have to be respectful of these characters who you're now responsible for protecting in a storytelling mode, being a director. So the same thing applies to when you're writing the show. And it was scary. It's scary, but it informs the process of shooting a show with so much more intimacy, because you care about everyone. You've been part of creating this world. So when you're inhabiting it, I can't describe it except to say that you feel more responsible and more passionate and demand more integrity in the storytelling. And that's why we're so attached to this project. We are people who are very attached to our families, now very much attached to the show that is telling their story.
When you did 5 episodes or directed 5 episodes of Royal Pains, did you sign on to direct 5 right away? Or
No,
did you...
it was one at a time.
Because that would be nerve-wracking to be like,
Yes.
get to the
Yes.
first day of your first episode and be like, I got to do 5 of these?
Yeah, no, I did not step into season 2 of Royal Pains with a 5-picture deal. I did not. It was one at a time, and if you don't ruin the show and go way over budget and way over time, maybe we'll let you do it again. I mean, you are in a privileged position as, you know, number 1 on the call sheet and a lead of a show, so they're going to indulge you somewhat. But if I screwed it up completely, and I almost did.
Really?
Yeah, well, the first episode, there was this dream sequence with 3 coffins and characters and I designed this entire nightmare dreamscape that would have cost $100,000 to build a huge set of a graveyard in this fantasy sequence, and they were like, Mark, no. That's just not going to happen. We don't have the budget at all. So you learn, and you end up shooting one coffin in a parking lot in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, with one ladder and a camera pointing down in it, and that's your $100,000 set.
You learn how to compromise.
Yes, that's
Which
exactly
is like
right.
what a lot of people say.
Which
most
is
of
the lesson
filmmaking
of
is.
Hollywood, is compromise.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Congratulations on your show.
Thank you.
I am wondering if this is a fun opportunity for you to go through the group of Hollywood actors and get to pick who you want to date on the show.
Oh, wow. Are you kidding? That sounds great.
Or is your wife overseeing that
So
aspect of it?
what's insane about the show is that I am dating on the show, and my wife is the one writing characters who come on the show and demand of me that I make out with them. But my wife is very cool and very confident in our relationship, or just a little tired after 12 years of marriage, because her attitude is like, less work for me. So she basically sends in proxies by giving me dates on the show, so that week she can just go to sleep.
Are you gonna notice like a pattern of like really horrible women that you're dating? That
I'm
your
sure.
wife is like,
I'm sure
"See, I'm
when
better than them. I'm better than them.
When I'm poorly behaved, she sends in the annoying ones, the character who's got horrible breath and likes to beat her men. And when I'm maybe behaving better, she'll send me a nice one. But recently we got to have, this was so surreal. Brooke Dorsey is an actress who played Paige Collins, my brother's wife on Royal Pains. So I found myself at a table read introducing Brooke, who's playing my love interest on the show, as the girl who has played my sister-in-law for the last 8 years on television. Cut to, I'm making out with her in a hotel bed. Incest is best, baby. No.
On that note, no.
Yeah,
I won't force
that's
you to
my
end
message to you, children.
there. I guess we are gonna end there.
TV incest.
Mark, congratulations on the show. I love it. I love Wet Hot American Summer so much. I look forward to more of your work. How can people see 9JKL?
They can turn on CBS on Monday night, 8:30, after a little show called The Big Bang Theory.
There
Okay.
it is. Mark Feuerstein, everybody. Give it up.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. So fun to be here.